There is a moment, somewhere in the spring of 2013, that captures everything wrong with Target Canada. A customer walks into a brand new Target store in Ontario. The shelves are half empty. The product she saw in the flyer is not there. The price on the tag is higher than what she paid for the same item at Target in Buffalo 6 months ago. She takes a photo of the empty shelf and posts it on Facebook. Within hours, hundreds of people share it. That photo did not cause Target Canada to fail, but it captured in a single image exactly why it was already doomed. Target Canada opened its first store in March 2013, and by January 2015 was operating 133 locations throughout Canada. The retail chain racked up losses of $2.1 billion in its lifespan and was widely viewed as a failure, described as a spectacular failure by CBC News, an unmitigated disaster by Maclean's magazine, and a gold standard case study in what retailers should not do when they enter a new market by the Financial Post. The end result was that Target Canada filed for bankruptcy, wasted billions of dollars, tarnished its reputation, and left approximately 17,600 people without jobs. This is not a story about bad luck. It is a story about hubris, speed, and one of the most avoidable corporate disasters in retail history. To understand what went wrong, you have to understand what Canadians were expecting. For years, millions of Canadians had been crossing the border to shop at Target in the United States. They loved it. The design, the product range, the prices. There was even a term for it, the Target effect, that sensation of walking in for one thing and leaving with a cart full of items you had not planned to buy. Canadian shoppers had been waiting for Target to come north for years. The anticipation was genuine and enormous. That anticipation became Target's first trap. Target Canada formed with the acquisition of Zeller's store leases from the Hudson's Bay Company in January 2011, paying 1.825 billion Canadian dollars for the leasehold interests in up to 220 sites. On paper, it seemed like a smart move. Instant national presence, established locations in malls and shopping centers across the country. No need to find real estate from scratch. In reality, it was the beginning of the problem. The company paid $1.8 billion for the leases to the entire Zeller's chain and formulated a plan to open 124 locations by the end of 2013, with the expectation that the Canadian company would be profitable within its first year of operations. Building a new distribution center from scratch typically takes several years. Target was going to do it in less than 2 years, and it planned to construct 3 of them. From the very beginning, the clock was the enemy. There was immense pressure, and that clock was absurd. Everything was compressed. Timelines that would normally stretch across years were squeezed into months. Decisions that should have taken weeks were made in days. And at every step, warning signs were dismissed because nobody wanted to be the person who slowed down the Canadian venture. The technology failure was the engine of the collapse. Target Canada deployed a customized SAP-based ERP platform built from scratch to support its Canadian expansion. But the system was not ready for scale or reality. Months prior to the company launching its first set of stores in March 2013, there had been major data issues within the system, and it quickly became clear that this was the underlying cause of Target's logistical issues. Inventory items had incomplete or missing information. Long lead times were stalling deliveries. Landed cost factors were not being accounted for, and product was not fitting in containers as expected. The data that fed the entire inventory system was riddled with errors. Product dimensions were wrong. Costs were calculated in the wrong currency. Thousands of items had vague or missing descriptions. When the system tried to reorder stock automatically, it was working from information that was fundamentally broken. Some team members even turned off automatic store replenishment systems without notifying merchants, so inventory numbers temporarily seemed healthier than the growing crisis on hand. Nobody wanted to report bad news upward. Nobody wanted to be the one who stopped the machine, so the machine kept running straight into the wall. By April 2013, eager shoppers flooding the new stores were already encountering many empty shelves. Managers faced shipments piling up in trailers and stockrooms filled with boxes they could not unload. At the store level, shelves stayed empty. Products that did arrive often were not what customers wanted. Missing labels, mismatched data, and an unreliable inventory system caused confusion. Technology failures meant registers froze, and items were scanned at the wrong price. And here is the cruel irony of it all. While stores looked empty, the warehouses were bursting. The product existed. It was just trapped in a broken system that could not get it to the right place at the right time. The pricing issue piled onto everything else. Canadians had spent years crossing the border specifically because Target in the US offered better prices than what they could find at home. They arrived at Target Canada expecting that same experience. What they found was the opposite. Previously loyal Canadian border shoppers felt scorned by the pricing differential versus US stores, as well as retail service, far inferior to Target's own gold standard. Target had assumed that Canadian consumers would behave like American consumers. They did not. Canadian consumers prefer comparing different prices and are not into one retailer loyalty, like in the United States. If a product has a higher price, Canadian consumers will look away and buy the same product from another retailer. Walmart was right there. Loblaws was right there. Canadian Tire was right there. None of them had empty shelves. By early 2013, customers took to social media in droves to vent frustrations over unsatisfactory store experiences, citing perpetual out-of-stocks and a lack of basic necessities. Unflattering photographs of gaping empty shelves made national news, damaging brand perception badly. In a last-ditch effort to placate complaining customers, Target Canada's leadership team took the unprecedented step of releasing a public YouTube video in early 2013, acknowledging widespread operational issues, inventory shortfalls, and a failure to deliver the enjoyable shopping experience Canadians had associated with Target. But the damage was already done. Leadership tried to hold the line. In the fall of 2013, hundreds of Target Canada head office staff piled into an auditorium in Mississauga for a State of the Union address. The employees were weary and frustrated. The bulk of the 124 stores had opened, and it was clear the launch had gone seriously awry. On stage, President Tony Fisher stated his conviction that Target Canada was making progress and that 2014 would be a greatly improved year. It was not a greatly improved year. By early 2015, Target Canada had accumulated a staggering $2.1 billion in operating losses. Analysts estimated that the division would not achieve profitability until at least 2021, a timeline that was deemed unattainable. Chief Executive Officer Greg Steinhafel, who had driven the Canadian expansion, departed abruptly in May 2014. His replacement looked at the numbers and drew the only conclusion the numbers supported. On January 15, 2015, Target Canada announced that it had commenced court-supervised restructuring proceedings and that it would close all 133 of its Canadian stores. By April 2015, every location was shut. Every light was off. Every sign was coming down. What makes this story genuinely difficult to accept is that it did not have to happen this way. The brand had enormous goodwill. Canadians wanted Target to succeed. The real estate was already in place. The demand was real. What emerged is a story of a company trapped by an overly ambitious launch schedule, an inexperienced leadership team expected to deal with the biggest crisis in the firm's history, and a sophisticated retail giant felled by the most mundane, basic, and embarrassing of errors. Target did not fail in Canada because Canada rejected it. It failed because the people running the expansion never truly respected the complexity of what they were attempting. They moved fast, cut corners, ignored warnings, and handed a generation of excited Canadian shoppers empty shelves instead of the experience they had been promised. Speed killed Target Canada. Not the market, not the competition. Speed.